Yes. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in yesterday's class, basically, um, in the last class, we discussed something about the network diagram, how to draw it, and also we discussed about how to determine the project completion duration. Is it right? So project completion duration was also discussed. Um, so basically, um, the next topic would be about how to plan the project and how to control the project. For the project manager, it is very much important the scheduling part of the project, because let us assume that there is a logistic project, correct, transporting the products from one destination to the other destination. So that the time lag is very much important. The time delay uh, cost a lot for a company. Maybe it may be a e-commerce business or any other sort of a business, but logistics plays a very much important role. For a project manager, it is very much important that the time is being uh, the project manager keeps up the time, not only in terms of the manufacturing and the supply aspect of the company, but otherwise even in the other aspects where research and development is included, and similarly manufacturing of the products are involved, right? So keeping up the time is very much important. Okay. So in today's class, what we'll do is we'll discuss something about the early start of a particular activity. Okay. So let us discuss early start and early finish of each of them. The next topic to be discussed is early start time and early finish time for each activity. Okay, in the project. Now, why this is important? Because as I told already that for a project manager, it is very much important to see that each and every activity, to see that the project finishes on time. So if the project has to finish on time, the finish time and the start time at the different levels has to be controlled. Is it right? So that is the reason for each of the activity, this start activity and start time of the activity and the finish time of each of the activity is being discussed. Okay. Uh, so basically, mm, so we'll just write the definition in one line. Early start of an activity early start of an activity, it is the possible duration earliest duration by which an activity can start. Okay. So this is the earliest possible time by which an activity can start. Similarly, what is early finish? Early finish time. So early start can also be called as ES. Okay. Is also called as ES. And early finish is called as EF. Okay. In short form, it is called as ES and EF. Okay. So early finish time is nothing but it is the possible duration by possible earliest duration by which an activity can. Okay, so that is the only difference. Is the earliest possible duration okay. So just make note of all these things as I'm writing it on the whiteboard. Earliest possible duration by which an activity can finish. Okay, this is the earliest possible duration by which an activity can finish. Okay, similarly, latest start and latest finish. So this includes both the definition, latest start and latest finish. Latest start is nothing but it is the latest possible duration. Latest possible duration by which an activity has to start. By which an activity has to start. Okay. Otherwise, just make one small correction here. We'll just write latest finish separately. Otherwise, some of them may get confused. Latest start. Latest possible duration by which an activity has to start. Okay. So if an activity, so what will happen if an activity starts beyond this latest start duration? If an activity starts after the latest start date, okay, after the latest start date, then the project duration will be delayed. If an activity starts after the latest start date, okay, that means if you delay an activity beyond the latest start date, then what will happen is the project completion duration also will be delayed. So that is the reason very important that the project manager has to determine these two parameters: what is the earliest possible duration and the latest start possible duration, latest finish possible. Okay, just make note of all this. If there is any doubts, you can just ask simultaneously. Why? Because project manager is basically a planner, and project planning is very much important before starting executing it. So project planning can be in any form. It can be in the form of logistics itself, like what I told just now, and even in terms of market research activities, like what you did in the previous semester, correct? So first, for a major company, which actually is focused primarily on a market research activities, it is very much important that they meet the client's deadline, because different companies are there, like soft drink companies are there who require market research. Is it right? Coca-Cola is there who actually launch different products, correct? And even different type of the automobile companies are there. They want to launch their product for their competitors too. And if they, before launching a product or before developing a particular product, they have to finish this particular market research survey. They should know what is required from the customer's point of view. Is it right? And if that has to happen, the project manager has to see that each and every activity finishes on time. This is the prime importance. And the project manager has to see that the product is delivered on time. The project manager here in this particular example can be in two different situations. One is completing the market research survey. There you may find one of the project manager, and once the market research survey is done, and once um, the research report is getting ready, or the research report is being developed, and the interpretations are being formed for the product, the company may start its new product development. Now the company has to think whether has to see that this particular development of the product gets completed on time, right? So that is another project here for a project manager. Is it right? So in both these scenarios, or in both these projects, the project manager has to see that they're meeting the project deadline. So that is the reason we are calculating this latest and earliest start. So if an activity starts after the latest start date, then I hope that you are making note of whatever I'm writing on the whiteboard. Then the project.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Then the project duration will be postponed. And the project duration will also be delayed. Is it right? Just for an example, I have to quote one example here. Purchase of raw material. If you delay this particular project, this particular activity by, let's say, you were supposed to purchase today, and if you are postponing it by some reasons, maybe it is weather conditions or unavailability of the employees, or maybe it is a national holiday or something like that. So because of n number of reasons, the project manager will have to delay the purchase of raw material. In which case, what will happen is the complete project completion duration gets delayed. Is it right? So that is the reason this early start and the latest start for each of the activity is being calculated. Similarly, last parameter we have to write latest finished. The latest possible duration by when this activity has to be finished. This activity means any activity for which you are calculating the latest finish duration. Okay. So early start, early finish, latest start, and latest finish. So once this is done, what we'll do is we'll just make note of one example. We'll see how to solve. So just give me some 1 or 2 minutes because definitions and problems usually I think I have made note of the problem which I wanted to do. Okay, no issues. Otherwise, I'll just dictate it orally. Without no possibly. Okay, otherwise we'll just go ahead. We don't require notes. So write example. Write the next example. Activity. Duration. And finally, we require activities. We'll consider the same activity because the same activity which we considered in our previous class. Since we know what exactly is that particular project all about, so we'll consider the same project activity base. So first is -2. We'll have 2-3, 3-6, 3 dash. Just a minute. So until and unless I completely write this problem, you just hold it. Don't write anything which I'm writing until I finalize and I give the confirmation. Just don't write anything. One dash 2, 2-3, 3-4, 4-5, dash 6, 6-7, 8, 7-8. So just do not make note of whatever I'm writing here. Just wait for some time. Once I give the confirmation, then you can write it. So we'll consider test 2-3, 3-4, 4-8, dash 5-6, 6-7, and dash 7. Just wait, do not write anything until I finish. So we'll just write the duration first, description first. Description can be first is setup office. Setup office. Second activity can be hire employees. Okay. Train them. Train the employees. Next is provide them sales lead. Okay, 2-5. 2-5. Select advertise. Select advertise agencies. Select advertise agency and plan advertise. So what can be another activity? Select advertising agencies. Once you select the advertising agencies, then you plan the advertising agencies and possibly. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So monitor the TRPs of their advertisements. Okay. Once they have planned advertisements and TRP or just a minute. That is the reason I'm asking you to just hold it. Possibly we can make this as do not write anything until I give the confirmation. So once you have selected the advertising agency, next you plan the advertisement. What should be the advertisement of the product look like, and then what can be the next step? Plan the advertisement and select the celebrity. Is it right? So you may have planned what should be the theme of the advertisement as a project manager. Now next is you plan who should be the celebrity for that particular advertisement, and finally you conduct sales of the product. Is it right? So now let us decide what should be the duration for each of the activities. First, setting up of the activities, it may take 10 days. Hiring of the employees, possibly it may take another 8 days. Training them, possibly 10 more days. 10 more days can be, because it may include orientation programs, so on and so forth. Provide them with a sales lead. I don't think that should take much time. 3 days we can give. Select advertise agencies, because this is a planning phase. Give 10 days time. Plan advertisement. This is another meticulous thing. So 15 days of duration. Select the celebrity. I don't think it must take much time. 5 days. And the sales of the product, it would take another 20 days of time. Correct? So these are the description and different list of the activities. Just make note of this.
Sir, should we note it down?
Yes, yes, yes. You are supposed to note this down.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, yes. Okay. So I'll just write the question statement right here. So the question, we are supposed to determine. We are supposed to determine early start, early finish for these list of activities. Okay. Latest start, latest finish. We will see it later. First, we will only determine the early start and early finish. whatever may be the question statement, but you are supposed to draw the network diagram. Very important. You are supposed to draw the network diagram. Okay, so I assume that you have listed all these activities and also you have written the description, so on and so forth for all these activities. Now draw the network diagram for this. Just refer to the previous problems and draw the network diagram for this. So for any type of the network analysis problem, first and the foremost step, compulsory, always for all the problems under network analysis, you're supposed to draw the network diagram. So see that you are practicing properly to draw the networks. So possibly just to see that everyone is comfortable with drawing the network diagram, we will see that we'll solve some more problems on drawing the network diagrams, only drawing the network diagrams. So in case you have finished writing this question statement, start writing the network diagram. Yes, I assume that you have finished network diagram. So we'll start it. 1 dash 2 dash 3 dash 4. If there is any doubts, you can ask me simultaneously. If there is any doubts, you are supposed to ask because it's online class and I cannot make out students who have got doubts and I think so this is done. Next. So what are the rest of the activities?
2-5.
Dash 5. Okay. Next.
5-6.
Versus 6 dash. What is the duration for 1 dash 2?
10,
10. Next.
8,
How much?
8.
3
2
dash
dash
4.
3.
Yes, 3 dash 4.
10. 10.
4 dash 7.
3.
Last one is 3 days. What about 2 dash 5?
20.
2 dash 5.
10. 10.
Next.
10.
Again 5 dash 6.
15. 15.
6 dash 7.
5.
So these are the different we are representing the project in the form of network tag. Is it right? So our first, in order to calculate the early start time, we have to calculate early start for each activity. We determine early start for each node. Early start for each node. Node means what? It is the start and the end point of each of the activity. So if we understand what is the early start for each of the node, then simultaneously we can start calculating the early start for each of the activities. Okay, that is the reason first we calculate early start for each of the node. Okay. Yes, so I think you can just make note of it. So totally there are 8 nodes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 nodes are there. That is the circles represents the nodes, correct? So for each of the node, we have to determine the early start, and activities are represented by this arrows. Is that right? So if we have to determine the early start for each of the activity, then we have to determine the early start for these circles first. Okay, so very much important. Activities are represented by these arrows. Correct? These arrows represent the activities, not the circles. Okay, circles just represents the point in time where actually the activity starts and ends. Okay, this is the meaning of this particular early start and early finish. So one of the question is, sir, network diagram can be of any shape. Is that right? The simultaneous another question is, I drew 2-3 and 3-4 downwards. That is fine. You can draw it anyways, not an issue. That means the question what is being asked here is, instead of fifth node, you can actually represent 3 and 4 here. You can write 3 and 4 here. And you can write 5 and 6 here. Not an issue at all. Okay. The diagram can be drawn anyways. Instead of 3, you can write 5 here, and instead of 4, you can write 6 here. And similarly, instead of 5, you can write 3, and instead of 6, you can write 4. So that sequence is not at all important. Only you should see that after 2, 3 comes. Okay, that has to be taken care. With this understanding, we'll just go ahead. So early start for node 1. Early start for node 1. Okay, node 1. Now, early start for node 1 is represented as E1. Okay, and E1 is 0 for all the problems compulsorily. Okay, it's not only for this problem, for all the problems E1 is equal to 0. That means what? You are starting the day, you are starting the first activity on the 0th day. That means if you let's see. I mean, when you actually solve this problem, you'll understand why E1 is considered as 0. Okay, that means what you are starting this at the 0th second or 0th minute or 0th day. Okay, you're starting the first activity. That is, you're starting the activity of setting up of the sales office at the 0th point of time. Okay, next we have, this is not only for this problem, for every problem this is the same case. Next is early start for the second node. Okay, early start for the second node, that is equal to E2. Okay, so we have to see what is we have to determine the early start for. Okay, so in order to understand the early start for the second node, we have to see how many activities actually finishes. So there is one activity which finishes on the second node. Okay, and the total duration for this node is 10 days. Okay, you can start writing the explanation. There is one activity that finishes on the second node. Okay, so there is only one activity that finishes on the second node. So that activity is 1-2. Okay, so that activity is 1-2. Okay, so whatever I'm writing on the whiteboard, see that you are writing it in your notes. So if you understand how to calculate the early start for this particular node, almost this problem is over. Okay, you have to understand how to calculate the early start for one of the activity, one of the node. Then you can simultaneously follow the same steps for all the problems. Okay, so just make note of this. Okay, so until and unless we complete this particular step, just keep patience. Then if you have any questions, we can ask after that, after solving this particular step. Right? So 1-2 activity. This is the continuation of the calculation E2. Okay, this is continuation of E2 calculation. 1-2 activity starts at node 1. Okay. Duration of this activity is duration of this activity is 10 days. Okay, therefore early start for node 2 is equal to E1 plus duration of 1-2 activity. Why E1 is considered? Because why E1 is considered here? Because this activity actually starts from the first node. Starting node is 1. That is the reason, since this is 1, the same number has to be written here. So if this was 3 here, you have to write the same thing here. Okay. So this is how we have to write the equation. So E1 is how much? Anyone? Can anyone tell? 0. And duration of 1-2?
10.
10.
Correct. So E2 is equal to 10 days. Okay. So how to interpret this particular result, we'll see. But for now, you just understand how to calculate all this. Calculate all these steps. In this particular calculation of the steps, is there any doubts?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So with this, how to calculate the early start for each of the activities, we will see. You can just make note of this. Similarly, we have to calculate the next one. The next activity, not the next activity, the next node. E2 is done. Next, we have to calculate E3, third node. Early start from the third node. Can anyone tell what should be the on the third node, which activity is finishing? Node number 3. Which activity finishes on node number 3?
Two dash 3.
2-3 and 2-5.
There are no only
Only
one.
2
Yes, only one activity should finish. Why? Because 2-3, 2-5, the ending node is fifth node. Is it right? That is the reason only 2-3 will be considered. Okay. If
Okay,
there is
sir.
any doubts, okay. If there is any doubts, you can ask. Okay. Next is early start for node 3. So only one activity, 2-3 finishes on node 3, and duration of this activity. How much is the duration? 2-3.
8.
8.
Okay. And E2 is equal to how much?
10.
Correct. Therefore, E3 is equal to how much? What should be the equation? Anyone? Since whatever I told,
E1.
yes, in this case it will be
E2.
E2.
E1.
Yes, in this case it will be E2. Because why we are not considering E1? Because E1 is already included in the calculation of E2. That is the reason. Again, if we consider E1 in this equation, it will be a repetition. Okay, E2 is already considered in the calculation of E2. So that is the reason E1 is not again considered in this equation. Okay, only E2 is considered. Okay, so whatever is written here, the same thing will come the equation. Okay. So E2 plus duration of 2-3. Anyone?
10 plus 8, 18.
10 plus 8, 18 days. Correct? Everyone getting the same answer? So in that case, just calculate E4, E4, E5, E6. Can you calculate E4, E5, E6?
Yes, sir.
If anyone has any doubts, you can ask simultaneously. I think one more calculation we can do with the available time. So just calculate E4, if possible E5. We'll discuss those two calculations and we will conclude the class.
Node 4 is 28 days.
Okay, node 4 is E4. I will write directly. E4 is how much? 28. Okay,
28.
What will be the equation?
E3 plus duration of 3 to 4.
Dash 4. E3 is how much?
18.
Plus
8,
10.
10.
Plus
18,
10.
18 plus 10. 28. So how to interpret all this? All these values we'll see later. Okay, E5. Can anyone tell the equation for E5?
E2 plus E5.
E2 plus duration of
Node 5, sir.
yes. Node 5. What should be the calculation for E5?
2 to 5.
2 to 5. Everyone are following this particular solution?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, E2 is 10. Duration is how much?
10.
Duration
10.
of yes. Duration of 2-5 is 10. Okay, so it will be equal to 20 days. Alright. So we'll stop here. Okay. If there is any question, you can ask. So if you have to see, one of the main important aspect here is drawing the network. If you are getting the network correct, then your next step will be correct. The first step is very much important, that you're spending much of the time on drawing the network diagram, and not only drawing the network diagram, just go and revisit it once again, twice, thrice, and see if you have drawn it properly. Okay. All right. So we'll continue in the next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.